Welcome to Sky Talkers. Here are your hosts, Charlotte and Caitlin.
Hello, and welcome to Sky Talkers. I'm your host, Charlotte.
Hey, everyone. I'm your other host, Caitlin, and welcome to this week's episode where we are doing an Acolyte Q&A with your questions. Also, our very first time having voicemails on the podcast.
Lots of firsts. Well, not really, but kind of first, because Caitlin and I are together. The audio might sound a little different because we're together, and we are chilling. And we're going to answer some voicemails. It's like sleepover vibes.
We're on a couch. There's blankets.
Yeah.
We went out and had a drink earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we tell you guys, we started playing Pokemon Go again.
Caitlin and I are in Massachusetts and we're having a good time. But last time we were together here, we were playing Pokemon Go.
It was 2018. That was the last time I was here with you. And it was Pokemon Go heyday. And we were taking a ride on some bikes yesterday. And we thought it would just take, you said, all I need is one person.
I just need one person to bring me back into Pokemon Go.
And I said, I'm that person.
Yeah. I've been like, I just needed a buddy to get back into Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
This is not a Pokemon Go podcast. It's a Star Wars podcast. But Caitlin and I are back playing. Caitlin had to start over.
Oh, I couldn't log into my account. So I just had to straight start over.
But guys, in 8 hours, I've
caught like 200 Pokemon.
That's a lot of Pokemon.
It's so absurd. I've hatched 2 eggs.
And we've only gone on like a short little walk with it. Pokemon Go is a different beast than what it used to be. It used to be just Ratatas, Pidgeots. Now it's new Pokemon type all the time.
So much variety.
Yeah, it's very nice, very fun. So we're having a good time with that. It's just a good time. And we're here to talk about the Acolyte.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
But I had to share about the Pokemon Go thing.
It's very top of mind.
Literally, we were just talking about it before we started recording and catching our last catches before we hit record. But we're very excited to talk about the Acolyte. It's been exactly 1 week since we've had the latest episode of the Acolyte, the finale, and can't stop thinking about this show.
So good.
Yeah.
When are we going to get the renewal announcement?
When is that coming? # renew the Acolyte.
If you're not posting about it and you loved the show, please post your # renew the Acolyte.
Yeah.
On Twitter, basically.
I think there's just, we really need a season 2. Well, I should have pulled it up, but there was this another interview that Leslie gave. I think it was in Vulture, actually, but let me pull it up because I think that it is worth kind of reading.
Pull it up.
Okay, here's the quote, the question from the interviewer who asked, by about episode 5 or so, those, quote, wokeness complaints got drowned out, at least on my feed, by growing enthusiasm for the romance plot and also fan cams of Manny Jacinto. And Leslie responded, one thing I've noticed since 5 and 6 is the female response to the show. You have a lot of fans who feel like I can be vocal now because someone is making something that I feel validated by. It's been my experience that the most disrespected demographic is young women. Not in Star Wars, but everywhere. That's the real concept of assuming that, especially with large IP, young women are expected to just get on board. And the interviewer responded, I guess producers make the assumption that young female fans are a secondary market. And Leslie responds, they assume they're going to get them because something like Marvel is a brilliant 4-quadrant initiative. Women continue to be fans of those things. But with the Acolyte, they could be like, hold on a second. This feels specifically for me. The MCU is full of gym rats with incredible bodies, but none of them are sensual or actively pursuing physical intimacy with another character, female or not. That's what makes The Stranger different. Manny's character is explicitly sensual. That is a bit of wish fulfillment to me in the fan fiction of my girlhood, but I'd argue part of my fandom is that. And I don't know.
It was great.
Felt so seen, and I just... # renew the Acolyte.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all I can say. You should post about it. You should email Disney Plus about it. They've got a feedback form on their website. Let's get it renewed.
Let's do it, guys.
Let's see the next season.
I think now's a good time, though, to thank you so much for all of your support for our Acolyte coverage. This will be our last episode on the Acolyte for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really fun covering the show week to week and speculating. It'll be funny to listen back about how much we were wrong about. It feels like a lot, but it was also right about a bunch of stuff. It doesn't matter. It's just the journey, and it's been really fun.
It's all about the climb.
It is all about the climb. Okay, so here's how it's going to work. We have a bunch of voicemails from you guys we're going to listen to, and then we also got a bunch of emails from international people. So we're going to alternate between voicemail, email, until we're done. So
Until we get there.
Until we get there. So let's get into it. Let's listen to the first voicemail.
Hello there, Sky Talkers. This is Joey. I very much enjoyed your coverage of this first season of The Acolyte, and I very much hope that there is a second season to cover some of the loose ends that were left at the end of this season. So my question for you is this. This season we got 2 flashback episodes which showed the incident on Brendock. Would you like to see more flashback episodes next season? And if so, what do you think they would cover? I would like to see 2 versions of what happened between Vernestra and Chimere, but who knows? It could be anything. Keep up the good work, and may the force be with you, always.
Thank you so much, Joey. That was a great voicemail. And okay, so my first reaction to that, I don't want to speak for you, is that I probably don't want more flashback episodes. Because I think by the second one, I wasn't. Caitlin and I both were kind of like, okay, we're rehashing this again. There's only 8 episodes. 2 of them were flashbacks. However, I really do want to see what happened between Chimere and Vernestra. So if there was a flashback with that, and that was the central focus of whatever misunderstanding happened between Vernestra and Chimere, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. That would be something that season 2 would focus on. And because I think season 1 with the flashbacks, it really focused on the concept that there was wrongdoing, there was right doing, there was people who thought they were right, there were people who thought they were wrong. There was just a lot of misunderstandings and different perspectives that people held. And seeing those different perspectives was, I think, really valuable for the story and for us to understand the sort of the moral gray that happens in between some people's choices. And I think that's probably going to be the same case for Vernestra and Chimere and whatever happened between them. Because when Chimere puts on his helmet in that finale episode, he's like scared of Vernestra.
Like a child.
Yeah. And so whatever, we will probably have to see that because that has to be uncovered somehow. And we know that Vernestra is like super old too. So I think there is a history there, of course, but I think we will probably have flashbacks. So sure. Yeah, I welcome that in season 2 that we're definitely getting.
Yeah, I think the function of the flashback has to be a little bit different in season 2 because I think it was such a huge, kind of what you were saying earlier, Charlotte. It was such a huge part of season 1.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a huge set piece, the flashback and the whole Rashomon of it all. I don't know if I want to see that story kind of told the same way.
Yeah, me neither. I think that's boring.
Yeah, so I think the flashback, I think there will be flashback. I just wonder if it will play as big a role, assuming that there's kind of more focus on Vernestra and Chimere in a second season, which I think there would be. I think that we would maybe perhaps spend less time in the past, and maybe it would be more of us inferring about what happened throughout the season based off of things Chimere says, if they meet up again, if they just straight up talk about it. So I think perhaps that I would want to see less flashback and maybe not quite the same structure of, like I said, the Rashomon of it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be, it's kind of impossible to keep the Akira Kurosawa out of Star Wars. So I feel like that will probably come up again, but I'm sure there's a different spin that you could do on it.
Yeah, there's totally a different way to be able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joey, again for your question.
All right, we're going to do our first emailed question, which is from Erica Carroll, who asks, why do you think that Chimere / the Stranger had such a different approach and demeanor towards Osha compared to May? For me, I think it really comes down to that first meeting on Olega in the bar. I think him sensing something different about her is what prompted that change, because it's kind of immediate, you know, once he gets closer to her and senses that energy. And I think this kind of touches on something we talked about throughout the season of how Osha and May are the same, but everyone is attracted to Osha's power.
Yeah.
There's clearly something different about her aura in the Force that is evident to people, and especially someone like the Stranger. I think it will be interesting to see in a second season how that evolves for him. I think in the finale episode, I said that he's definitely a fell first and falling harder in the romance trope side of things. But I wonder how that could actually play into his perception or of her power, and how she starts to use that power, and maybe even how Chimere wants to use that power too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like to me, something that I don't think was answered in season 1 and didn't necessarily have to be answered in season 1 either is just there's something different about Osha.
Yeah.
And I think, I said that it wasn't answered in season 1, but I feel like it sort of was, given the fact that Osha had her own choice at the end, despite this labeling of the fact that Osha and May are quote unquote the same person, born of the same, they're not twins, they're the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's different than, I don't know, when you say that, it takes away any sort of individuality. But instead, what happens is everyone who's interested in Osha, from Soul to Chimere to even May, understands something that is different about her. So I agree with you that I think that there's just like a sense of there's something special about her, and I just don't think that was answered in this season.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that negatively. I just think that there's more to explore with that character and more to uncover about her specialness.
Yeah, and I think Leslie has kind of talked on this too about Chimere specifically and how he's able to tell the difference between May and Osha.
Yeah.
But Soul mixes them up, and especially at the end when he's kind of spiraling, he is really focusing on the fact that they're the same person. So I think Chimere's approach being different between May and Osha is also part of his character, that he actually is able to tell them apart and doesn't conflate them into one consciousness, as Soul kind of does at the end.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think we gave like a super clear answer to that. Like, what is it that is so different about her? Like, we don't know. I think there's the mysteriousness that I think is actually fun and cool to. That's why we need a season 2.
Yeah.
We need a season 2 because exploring those individual stories, it's sort of like, this is a bad, maybe it's not bad. This is a sort of weird analogy, but I mean, if Osha is one of our protagonists with May, then you can compare her to Rey, and there was a lot we didn't know about Rey in the beginning of her journey.
Yeah.
I mean, same with Luke Skywalker, same with Anakin, all these things we don't know. We need the next piece. If this is the episode 1, then we need the episode 2, the episode 3, right?
Yeah. Chapter 1 was about setting the stage of Osha, about where she's been, and her making the next step as to where she's going.
Exactly.
So now we actually need to see her walk that path and hopefully uncover for herself what it is about her and her relationship to the Force that is standing out to all these people.
Isn't it so interesting that all the marketing showed only May, and then really what happened was the story was mostly about Osha?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it's interesting. Star Wars marketing is so fascinating to look back on, given the final product. I think they nailed it. They did a good job, but it's funny that the main character was really hidden for all of it.
It's funny because we talked about this, how they kind of spoiled the twins,
the
twin concept of it. They didn't hide it that hard.
No, because they can't.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, totally. Okay, let's go to our next voicemail.
Hi, Charlotte and Caitlin. This is Becca, also It's Wild from Twitter. Just calling you guys because I've got a couple of questions for you for the podcast. My first question is, in episode 8, when Osha and Chimere arrive on Brentok, Osha says that to get inside the compound, they have to hack into the electrical. I can't remember exactly what she says. But Chimere responds with, "Are you sure?" And the camera pans, and you realize that Osha is there alone, and Chimere is no longer there and spoke to her telepathically. This isn't the first time he's done this. In episode 5, he gets into May's mind, and he calls her a coward, and he says something else as well. And Yord even mentions that Chimere gets inside your mind and stays there. I can't recall if this is a dark side ability from canon, or maybe it's something special to Chimere, but I do think it's an interesting ability, and while it echoes the Force bond of Rey and Ben, it's definitely not that, because this is, more Force walkie-talkie versus Force FaceTime. So just wondering what your guys' thoughts on that are. And my second question, I've actually already put this out into the Twitterverse, but I thought it would be funny to ask you guys as well. In episode 2, when we meet Chimere, May asks him what he's wearing, and he responds that he took it off the guy that owns the apothecary. Later in episode 2 and in episode 4, you see him wearing what looks like to be a giant brown blanket, but I don't think that, the giant brown blanket is an aesthetic of enough difference from what he's wearing in the apothecary. So my question is to you guys, what do you think that he normally wears? Because I don't know, what he wears as Chimere really sort of fits his personality. So interesting question. Thoughts there. But thank you guys. I can't wait to hear your answers and can't wait to listen to the podcast. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much, Becca. I want to answer the second one first.
Okay. There you go.
Okay, first off, my first thought is he wears nothing when he's just hanging out. Obviously.
The true version of Chimere.
Yeah, even though now we know that Plagueis is with him, so maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still kind of get the vibe that he's like a boxers type of guy. Like he's just walking around in those or his like swim trunks or something. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know what his true outfit is, but I had to say nothing.
I had to say nothing. His birthday suit.
Yeah.
I actually think his true outfit, his true aesthetic is what he wears in episode 6, the Mr. Darcy Regency blouse and black pants. I do think it's funny to think about him. When you were talking, Becca, your question about like Chimere's aesthetic and what he's wearing in episode 2, it just really reminded me of how May just really doesn't notice what's going on with Chimere. The fact that he was able to just take over this apothecary and took it off the hands of the guy who ran it and his clothes too. What happened? May is not suspicious at all. And it also made me think of that moment when they have the little tussle outside at the end of episode 2.
Yeah.
And she is kind of surprised at how he can fight back.
Yeah, his power, his like strength.
But she doesn't question it
further. Right.
But I actually do think that this will be something that would be explored in season 2 as we get more character development with Chimere. And I've actually been thinking a lot about what Chimere's real name even is, because right now, the Caitlin of July 24th, 2024, I would say that Chimere is not even his real name. So what is his real name? And when he reveals his real name, is it to Osha? And is another source of truth from him, vulnerability, and that could also indicate a change in his costume too once that is kind of put out there.
Yeah, I actually totally agree. I think you're right that that's probably his standard outfit, and like that's who he is that white blouse. Yeah, very Byronic hero.
Byronic hero.
Yes. Okay, the first question though about this special power that overcomes Chimere. What do you think about that?
I liked how Becca described it, a force walkie-talkie rather than force FaceTime. Yeah. I will say I do wonder if there's some connection there to the way that Palpatine says in Tross of I've been every voice in your head.
Yeah.
I do think there's something there. And I think it's a really good point Becca brought up too about how Yord even says when he gets in your head, he stays there. And I'd kind of forgotten about that. So I do think there's some connection there. And I would have to imagine.
It's definitely similar to whatever happened in the possession situation too with Torben. I think they're all relative to each other. The thing is for me, it's hard when you talk about the force bond and this, it's hard because I feel like the force bond is ultimately positive, and it's hard for me to like in my head put that next to like a quote unquote dark side ability.
Yeah.
And I think that's just me personally. I don't even know if that's actually true because clearly the Force Bond and Rey and Kylo being a dyad fueled Palpatine somehow when he was coming back to life, which means it's neutral. It's not necessarily a good thing, right?
Well, the thing with Chimere, it's one-sided.
Yeah.
So I guess we could have this conversation again in season 2 to determine if Osha can also walkie-talkie back to him.
I think she'll probably learn, given the fact she put on the helmet, ate a soup.
Yeah.
All those things. Ate a soup.
Wore his clothes.
Yeah, ate a soup. Yeah, I just slept in his bed.
Yeah.
It's very much assimilating and becoming part of him and his lifestyle. What I think ultimately, like for the story and for Star Wars, I think that showed a new dark side ability.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, story-wise, what cinched Osha on the dark side and the whole quote unquote to kill a Jedi without a weapon was using the force choke, which is something that we're familiar with. It doesn't necessarily show us a new ability, but I think with Kymir's power, I think as an audience member, we were kind of yearning to see some sort of, at its height, this Darksider who hasn't fully been labeled a Sith, right? Like the Sith situation was really fully labeled externally to the story, but I guess what we're seeing now is a Darksider exploring new abilities that we've never seen before. And I think that's what that is. The concept of Osha needing to hack into the fortress manually, I think that's also story-wise, what was Osha before she got back into the Jedi, before the story started? She was a mechanic, right? Like she was hacking. She was doing stuff with wires, doing things with her hands. And what Kymir shows her in that moment, it's quick, obviously, but is that there's another way to not do, you don't have to do things with your hands. You can do it with the Force. You can do it with the dark side. And I think that is supposed to show like a complete opposite, a removal, a difference of what she was familiar with in the past.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also wondered if Kymir scaled the fortress wall like we saw Soul do.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we would kind of pull out to him doing that, like pan the camera out, and he would just be.
But he's not scaling. I think it's like he's evaporating.
Well, because he does the whole bat fly-in.
He did the bat fly-in, and that was the first time we ever see something like that. But there's also several occasions throughout the season in which Kymir just like disappears.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he got down from being hung upside down in the tree too.
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel like he probably did it super gracefully.
Have we talked about on the show that it's like so interesting going back about that? That, you know, I think you did a TikTok about it.
I did a TikTok about it.
We give reference.
There was a interview that Manny and Amanda gave. I don't even know when.
In the very beginning, like first press
tour.
Yeah.
It's on video. But they basically talk about how in episode 4, when when Kymir gets caught in May's trap and he's hanging upside down, that originally it was May who got stuck in the trap, and it was Kymir who trapped her or whatever. But then on the day of shooting, they ended up switching it because Manny and Amanda thought that it would actually be better for both of their characters to have it switched. And I don't know, I had started my Acolyte rewatch, and I was rewatching that scene again and thinking of if it had been May up in the tree or hanging by the rope rather than Kymir. And I think it totally was the right decision.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think it more so for May, honestly, because it really kind of solidifies her letting go of that anger and being like, oh, Osha's alive. You know what? I don't need this BS anymore.
Mm-hmm. Also, for the whole, not to interrupt you, sorry, but it adds to the tension of like, okay, Kymir's tied up.
Yeah.
He's off the table. But then figuring out how did he get out of that? That adds to sort of what we've been talking about and the differences that he exhibits in the Force that we just have never really seen before. There's like a different sort of power, which is cool.
Yeah.
And like, that's what we need.
Yeah, completely.
Because everything, this is a bold statement, but I guess in the movies, most of the Darksiders that we see are extensions of learning from Palpatine in terms of the dark side. So this is the first time we're seeing, or it's really not the first time. Okay. I recognize that, but I think to an unfamiliar audience and someone who's just familiar with the basic Star Wars movies, this is the first time we're seeing a Darksider that has no relation to Palpatine that we know of. Okay. That we know of.
Charlotte just leaned really close.
That we know of. There is something though with the fact that there's our friends Blast Points talked about this, that the comm that Vernestra sends, that it kind of sounds like Ian McDiarmid, and that potentially there's like a hint at the future. If this is, I don't know how to feel if like somehow Palpatine has returned into this. I'm not putting that out there, but I actually kind of am. I think it's,
you are.
Yeah, I'm not trying to. I just think it is interesting because it sounds exactly like
the pieces are there if they fit.
Yeah. And they said this and it actually rocked my world. I was listening to the podcast and driving. I paused the podcast, I picked up my phone, and I called Caitlin when I was listening to Blast Points, because basically Jason and Gabe had talked about how if this Acolyte is dealing with like people who are super aged and like fully old, and they figured out how to extend their life. I mean, if Kymir is like 200 years old and he's not actually 200 years old looking, and this whole thing is about eternal life versus
looking as good as he does.
Yeah, right, like facelift vibe. I feel like Blast Points had brought up, it's interesting how in Revenge of the Sith, when the Force lightning goes to Palpatine, he like it turns out to be like old, and it's kind of unexplained and it's sort of magical, whatever happens with that. But I can't remember if it was Jason or Game who brought it up, but either of them were like, I always thought that maybe that Force lightning was returning Palpatine to his age, how old he actually is, and what his face actually looks like.
He's
and the magic has
masking it.
Yes, exactly. And I thought that like blew my mind. Anyway, I didn't mean to bring Palpatine in this conversation.
Somehow.
I don't even know how I got here, so let's move on. Great questions, Becca. Thank you so much. Okay, so this next question is from Britt. What moment in the series had you both down bad crying at the gym? As a Taylor Swift reference for the
Taylor Swift
initiated. The non-Swifties out there. What is your moment?
What moment from the series had you both down bad crying at the gym? I think probably, honestly, Chimere stripping, getting into the lake.
I literally screamed.
I was down bad
crying at the gym. Yeah.
I think an underrated moment from that episode that people don't talk enough about is when he lifts up his shirt to show the scar, specifically because he wants Osha to ask about it. But it's also very sensual. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like when he's working on the helmet, he didn't need to lift up that much of his shirt.
I agree with you. It's just that doesn't have me down bad crying at the gym. What has me down bad crying at the gym is the stripping.
Yeah.
And then all the handholds that are held through a lightsaber.
Yeah. Yeah. I will also say what also has me down bad crying at the gym is the
casual stroking.
Yes.
Okay.
But also specifically the head tilt. No, it's like when he gets out and he goes, funny you ask about him first, and he just tilts his head. It's down bad crying at the gym.
All right. Great question, Brett. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, next voicemail.
Hey, Caitlin. Hey, Charlotte. This is Anthony from Force Ghost Conversation. I want to see as a result of what happens in the finale. As you getting know anyway that has watched the show, Osha bleeds his kyber crystal and he trains with Chimere. So I was just curious about what you think that means for his legacy moving forward, right? Do you think it's like a metaphor for his continued legacy in terms of his failure for what happens in Brendock, and then as Osha continues her training, is that a direct result of that, or is he kind of in a way responsible for the actions that are undertaken using that kyber crystal moving forward? I think this is probably some of the most juicy stuff of the finale and how that can affect things moving forward, but it's just an interesting thing about the legacy of passing down a saber from technically at one point master to apprentice or master to pupil, depending on the conversation there. But yeah, just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And thanks again for all of the wonderful work that you do and the great conversations that you've been having in regards to the Acolyte over the last couple of weeks here. Really enjoyed the podcast, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts then. Thanks.
Okay, so that question was from Anthony, and I think that unfortunately the connection broke up a little bit, but my understanding of the question was, what do we think about the implications of the fact that now Osha has Soul's lightsaber and that it bled, and is now Osha responsible for some of the deeds that happened on the lightsaber?
Or Soul responsible?
Is Soul responsible? Well, Soul's dead.
Yeah, I guess thinking about the fact that it is Soul's lightsaber.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that legacy of it being a Jedi lightsaber.
Jedi lightsaber that's now the crystal has bled, and now the passing of master to quasi-apprentice, and the fact that it changes. I think that's a really good question. Thank you so much, Anthony. Also, if you're not listening to Force Ghost Conversations, we love that podcast, and we had a great time on it recently talking about The Phantom Menace. What do you think about the passing of the lightsaber, the bleeding, the fact that now Osha has Soul's lightsaber?
This also has me down bad crying at the gym.
Yeah, honestly.
This is one of the standout moments. I think Anthony said it's so juicy, and he's so right. It's so juicy. It's so angsty. It's so delicious of Osha having his lightsaber. I think it's kind of like that sentiment of what they talk about with the dark side of, when Chimere said, you put on the helmet and you take only what you bring with you.
Only what you take with you.
Only what you take with you. And, Luke on the dark side in the cave. Dark side cave on Dagobah. Sorry. This is what Osha is bringing with her now.
Yeah.
So it becomes very symbolic of her fall to the dark side, and it will be very curious to see what she does do with that lightsaber in the future. And I think in our finale discussion, we talked about what Osha will come to be defined as. Will it be Sith? Will it Knights of Ren? Will it be back to the light side? Will she forge her own path of something in the middle, what everyone loves to talk about, the gray Jedi or something in that vein,
We went a whole season of the Acolyte without bringing up gray Jedi, Keelan.
I can't believe that, honestly, because you and I both like using the term gray Jedi, which I know is very
triggering a lot of people right
I know
now.
It is. Some people are turning off. That's
Yeah.
fine. I respect it. I think we like the idea of what gray Jedi represents, or just the conversation around it.
I don't even like what gray Jedi represent. I like the conversation around the fact that people are people and you don't have to experience the binary of light and dark.
That's what gray Jedi is a placeholder for.
Yeah. It's like the Wayseeker or the Wayfinder. I can't remember. Wayseeker.
Yeah, Wayseeker.
Wayseeker in the High Republic, which is like the Jedi have moved on to being more individualistic.
Yeah. So I don't know why people have a problem with gray Jedi, I'll be honest. But I think that
people are writing emails right now.
It's fine. You can send them. That's fine. Okay. So I think it would be interesting to see if Osha becomes some type of Wayseeker or forges a new path for herself. Will she let go of that lightsaber that holds so much trauma now? Is it something she would keep moving forward? Would it bleed again in a new way? I think there's so much wrapped up in the lightsaber. It's so symbolic. It was such an incredible choice for it to be Soul's lightsaber that I think it will continue to play a role in Osha's emotions going forward.
I think in canon now, something that's really interesting that has happened over the past 10 years plus is that the Kyber crystals now have sensitivity and like are personified in a lot of ways. So I definitely think that it's important that since this crystal was bled by Osha in front of Soul, I think it's really important. Even Soul's dead, obviously, but yeah. I think yes, the crystal and the feelings about what happened with that lightsaber are going to be a part of Osha and her journey, because in a lot of, I don't know, like that lightsaber killed her mother, and that's heavy.
And then she used it.
And
well, she didn't use it.
She didn't use it.
It was part of that moment.
Yeah. Well, now it's hers. So now it's part of this journey, this moment that happened on Brendok, right?
This revenge against Soul. Something while you were talking I was thinking about too is we've seen when Vernestra arrives on Brendok, she is able to get the memories of what happened there.
Oh, that's psychometry.
Yeah. Like Quinlan Voss.
Mace Windu have that? No, I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, different.
Yeah, it's different. Same
realm.
Same world, adjacent.
Quinlan Voss, though, is the OG.
Yeah, but I wonder if that would ever be something Osha would be able to tap into and have impressions, flashbacks, something. We were talking about flashbacks earlier, but really more so impressions or feelings from the lightsaber, which, like you said, is kind of personified now with the sentiment of the Kyber crystal. So I wonder if that would also be a part of her journey of uncovering new layers, new memories that are given to her from the lightsaber.
Do you think that if there are new memories that come from the crystal, do you think it makes her understand Soul's journey more and sort of forgive him?
I think it definitely complicates it more for her.
Yeah.
because I think that's what makes it hurt so much, is because she does love Soul.
Yeah,
So for that betrayal to come from him is just awful.
totally.
And so what would happen if in some future where she's not so consumed by her grief and her feelings of revenge? I don't know. But I think the lightsaber, it's one of the best moments of the show.
Totally agree.
All right, our next question is from Sophia from Australia. Thank you so much for listening from Australia.
Love that.
Yeah, she writes, what do you think May's arc could be in season 2? I hope she fights to regain her memories. I just need the twins back together. The scene of them under the bunta tree in the finale just broke me. It would be interesting if the master-pupil dynamic changed for season 2. Osha and Chimere being pursued by Vernestra and May. Maybe May becomes her pseudo-Padawan. Sophia also had a fanfic recommendation, which thank you so much, an Oshimere fic called Iridescence by Cleo Rhodes. Cleo Rhodes is CLIORHODES, which that's definitely, I bookmarked it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much.
No. All right, so what do you think about this?
I think this is exactly what's going to happen, what Sophia put at the end of Ocean, Chimere being pursued by Vernestra and May. And I think May will become her pseudo Padawan.
Yeah.
I think that's the tragic irony and the great irony of the end of the show of them completely switching. I also do think that I think that May will play a role in getting her own memories back. But I kind of talked about this at the end of our finale discussion. And it's really kind of sat with me about Osha finding a way to reverse Chimere, taking away May's memories. And that this is in turn part of that giving of life, creating life, restoring life to May, who is kind of existing in a void right now. And that and with Plagueis, there's something there, creating life, restoring life, saving someone from dying. This is kind of like a different version of that, I think. So I think there's something really fascinating that could be done.
Because the thought is sort of metaphorically, May died in order for Osha to live, right? That's not what truly true in terms of the story, but in terms of the May that we knew,
she sacrificed herself.
She sacrificed, yes, in order for Osha to finally have her own choice that was robbed of her when she was younger. So helping May get those back would be interesting.
Yeah, and so I think that's what Osha would be working towards. I think that will be a big motivation for her in season 2, because she even says, I'll find you again. And May says, I know you will. It will be great to see what May starts to think and feel about the Jedi. And then when she inevitably gets her, I shouldn't say inevitably, but hopefully when she gets her memories back, then there could be this similar kind of situation again where May has this idea of who Vernestra is, and then finds out that she's not actually that person, and that she's been lied to for a lot of this journey with Vernestra, I'm assuming.
What if she's not lied to with the journey with Vernestra, though? I mean, we're assuming that because that's what happened in this season, but maybe that's somehow even more complicated in the next one with how we view Vernestra. Because throughout the season, I have to be honest, Vernestra, I was like, I don't know what to think about you.
Yeah.
I have these feelings about you because I liked her character in the High Republic, but I also never really understood her character that much because I think that she was going through a lot. She was much younger. She was a teenager.
Yeah.
So I think seeing her in this adult form and knowing that she was going to cover up everything, it was like I was already preparing to just be mad at her. And that happened, but at the same time, I understood what it was. Just this whole thing of the show, right? You understand why people do the things, even though you
don't agree with them.
You don't agree with them.
Yeah.
So her choice at the end to blame it all on Soul, it makes sense, but she's hiding something that feels personal since we know that now that she knows the stranger. So there's something there. Who knows what happened there? I might feel like Vernestra was super right in that decision. Maybe I'll feel like this whole cover up makes a lot more sense now we find out what her relationship was like with Chimere. Like, what did he do? I don't know.
Not a thing. Not a thing wrong in his entire life.
That's sarcasm.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're not not aware.
Listen, I know he did a lot of wrong things, but
sometimes when I close my eyes, I can still see that neck snapping of Jord. It's
that
like
is
so bad.
brutal.
It's so brutal.
It's so brutal.
It's so
Yeah.
bad.
But
Anyway,
then you hit fast forward and you flash forward to episode 6.
yeah. I have to say though, I think I agree with you. Like, I want the twins to be back together.
Yeah.
And I think eventually they have to.
But can they stay together?
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think the theories of the fact that one of them had to die in order for the other one to live because they're not twins, they're different, like they're the same person or something like that. I don't know. It got mystical real fast. And then we basically saw the symbolic death of one of them.
Yeah.
What does that mean going forward? Since we've already experienced that symbolic death, I don't think that's going to happen with Osha on the other side. I think that's kind of boring.
So then does it become a real death?
Oh, I don't like that.
They are the eclipse. They are always eclipsing each
Each other. Yeah. I wonder if there's something there about the lunar and solar eclipse of it too. I don't know. I'd have to do some digging more into the some symbology there, but I feel like there's some differences that they could explore in season 2, season 3 that would be interesting.
It would be really great to see new kind of takes on the eclipse metaphor of it all, or if it turns into a different metaphor.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for your question. Let's go to the next voicemail.
Hey, Charlotte and Caitlin. Don't know if I'm too late. I unfortunately listened to the last episode this morning, but figured I'd call in if not. The Acolyte floored me. I expected to love it. It was the show I've been looking forward to the most. But what I wasn't expecting was the blackest Star Wars that we've ever gotten. It's fascinating that in this charged era, they decided to do a story about bias police league and the fallout of that. I was honestly floored with Soul's decisions as well as the way they portrayed the realistic way that people who have done real harm to communities lie to themselves and justify it or try and make up for it in a way that can never fully be reconciled. And I was simply kind of fascinated to see one that Leslie being Leslie being a queer creator naturally would have dealt with discrimination, but not in quite the same way. It's kind of surprising how much this show struck a chord with me. And I wanted to see, and I've noticed conversations between black and white people, especially around Master Soul and how redeemable he is, kind of going to kind of reaching a very different timber. Personally, Master Soul is dead to me. But it's I kind of just wanted to weigh in on how culturally charged this Star Wars happened to be. And yeah, love you guys. Saw you guys at Celebration. It was really cool. Thanks. See ya.
Okay, great question. This definitely was the most, I don't know, Andor was pretty culturally charged too, honestly, and very real in terms of the realism politics that it was tackling. But I think this show, I'm sure one of the reasons why Amandla was so interested in this project was it was taking on that I don't even want to use the word nuanced, but the thought process of how people do wrong things and justify them. Of course, Caitlin and I are two white creators and we live in a very privileged position.
Yeah.
So our analysis might not be as astute as our other fellow creators who are people of color and are within the queer community. But I feel like it's very clear to me that I think that was the heart and the central part of what the show was trying to get at. And I think it presented it in a way that doesn't feel what some people might say as hitting you over the head or anything like that. Like, I don't think that the show did that, even though some of the critics might say that without even watching it. I really don't think that the show did that. But instead, I think it really portrayed, like you said, this really fascinating way that people do really bad things and then justify it through all of these different systems that back them up too.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand your perspective of Master Soul is dead to you. Like I fully get that.
Yeah.
I feel like that man lived years being protected by the systems that he was within.
Zero consequences.
Zero consequences, except for the fact that he lost the Padawan that he loved, right? But that was his own fault.
Mm-hmm.
And it took for her a while to realize that it wasn't her fault, but instead Master Soul's fault.
I think the other piece of it is that, Star Wars has always been political. It's
Totally.
always been trying to say something. And you had mentioned this about critics of the show that aren't even watching.
By
the
critics,
show.
I don't mean critics. I mean people who are critical of the show without watching the show.
Yeah, that are just kind of, I feel like I saw so many comments where people were saying they're not watching the show. They're just watching YouTube commenters on the show, which it's just
Silly.
Yeah, I mean, form your own opinion about the show if you like it or not. But I think that we were just given such a gift with this show of how many diverse voices there were. And then for it to be as good as it was, it's just clear how much we need that in Star Wars and new perspectives. And then, but the thing I keep thinking about too is that Leslie spoke so much about how this was a personal story for her too. That yes, there's obviously this nuance about what you were saying about like larger systems and how they protect people when they shouldn't, when they should be held accountable.
Right.
And I think we saw examples of that in the show, obviously, but even thinking about May and how really that's what she wanted was the truth to come out. I think that's ultimately what she wanted even more than revenge in the way that Osha enacted it against Soul and that truth coming out.
Yeah. I think just to ground it in the realism, like I don't think it's an accident that the two main characters are Black and then the person that got murdered, their mother, is also Black.
Yeah.
And what's happening is a major cover-up by systems. And I think that is a singular piece of commentary that fits right in with George Lucas in critiquing Vietnam and America's position there.
Yeah.
It's the
Star
politics
Wars.
of today, and it was the politics of then too, unfortunately, and it is Star Wars. Yeah,
exactly.
So do I have thoughts about that? Yeah, I think it aided to the story. I think it added another layer. Again, I think that's also, you can say that about Andor, which I feel like these are the two really latest projects. Like we had The Mandalorian between that, but the two new, like net new projects, and
yeah,
I think it's just a really cool exploration. Yeah.
And Star Wars should continue to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much for your question.
All right. Our next question from email was from Adam T, who asks, based on what we are told in Revenge of the Sith, which mythological, folklore, or literary characters do you think of as potential strong analogies for Darth Plagueis in future seasons? My mind went to Prometheus and Dr. Frankenstein with the whole creation of life angle. But I'm curious about his potential impact on Chimera and Osha's relationship and was wondering what parallels you might be able to draw. And also, Adam asks, will we see Basil again? I think so. Basil was so much more prominent in this season than I ever expected, so I fully anticipate Basil to be back.
I agree. Will I see Basil again? Yeah, of course.
100%.
I think Darth Plagueis, what's happening in the cave is fully a Monster Mansion situation. I know that Leslie had specifically referenced Crimson Peak, which is a Guillermo del Toro movie. It's a horror movie with like a haunted house type situation. And I think that there's definitely a haunted vibe that's coming out from that cave, and seeing Plagueis reach his fingers out. I think there is also like a sense of Nostradamus that I think is very clear.
Yeah.
And I think I've been thinking a lot about when we say Darth Plagueis the Wise, what that means too. Again, terrible Star Wars fans have not read that book, but so we're coming in it with a fresh perspective.
That's what it is.
Yeah, a fresh perspective. And it's definitely when Plagueis comes out and around the corner, he's coming out of the crypt, right? That's the vibe.
It is.
And yeah, I think the Dr. Frankenstein connection is awesome. And I think that the Frankenstein concept is, of course, creating life, right? So I think all of these elements are there. One thing that's kind of interesting is the Lucasfilm halls are fully filled with monster movie posters. So Potentially when Leslie had her story group meetings and her story, I shouldn't say story group, but story meetings with her
Her team.
writing team and everything, they were within the halls of the great monster movies and all of that. So I think that's all very inspirational. And I think it's very, I don't know. I think that the Frankenstein connection is great. Prometheus connection is also really interesting. What do you think?
I think the Prometheus connection is a really fascinating one to bring in because Prometheus defies the Olympic gods and brings fire to the people,
Mhm.
which in turn allows them to create civilization
Mhm.
and the knowledge of fire, which is, obviously very good
Mhm.
for humanity in Greek mythology. So it's interesting to kind of put that spin on Plagueis in the sense of creating life and how it's something he's trying to do. I think that's always the way that Leslie has posited it so far, or really about the Sith in general and how they would be interested in creating life and kind of trying different ways. I think I would like to bring back in the Dracula vampire
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
it
I thought
all.
that was implicit. I should have brought that up before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that is, to me, that's the bigger connection with Plagueis.
Yeah.
And it would make sense if he is already training Chimere, that Chimere would be like a vampire on his own, which I know we've discussed before.
I feel like Chimera is more the Dracula, and I think that
he could be the older Dracula.
that's why I said Nostradamus, because
I think Nostradamus is
honestly,
actually a good connection.
And I think also the Prometheus thing, it made me think of when you were talking about it, how remember Leslie saying that there was an Alien episode and a Predator episode?
Yes.
And we were like, I think we know the Predator episode, wonder when the Alien episode's going to come. And maybe I missed it. Maybe there was a better connection. But like when we talk about Prometheus, I think of there's an Alien movie called Prometheus, and that is also about like restarting life but getting like really disturbed by it, and like also things getting really scary and haunted.
That fits the bill.
It does. So yeah, there's just a lot of scary stuff that I think we're dealing with in this cave on this unknown planet.
Where are we? What
I
are
don't
we
know.
doing?
I don't know.
Does Chimere know Plagueis is watching him?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think so. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Was Plagueis like, you gotta seduce her?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. I think the fact that we know Sith as in like the original Star Wars movies, if we're just thinking about that, we think about the rule of two and the master and apprentice, and there's no more, no less. But like for Sith to survive, that just can't be possible, right? You have to have more. You have to be taking in pupils. You have to be taking in acolytes. You have to be
fundraising.
You have to be fundraising. You have to be knocking on doors, pavement. Yeah, no.
Soliciting.
No, I just feel like you can't defeat the Jedi and kill the Dream with just one person. It's just, you can't take down a system like that. And I mean, maybe you can, but Palpatine certainly didn't when he infiltrated all these different systems, right?
Well, I think that's kind of what Leslie is talking about through the show is that even the Sith's goal at this time?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Is their goal to create life? Is their goal just to survive? They don't have this kind of presence in the same. I mean, the Jedi don't even know that they're out there.
Mm-hmm.
So they're lurking. I guess we should say they're not pounding the pavement, knocking on doors.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it just has me thinking about the difference between what Plagueis wants and what Chimere wants. And granted, we don't know.
We don't know.
But we know that Chimere wants freedom.
And an apprentice.
Or
like a partnership.
Yeah.
So using what we know about the Sith and the rule of two, my assumption, and that's kind of sort of where the Palpatine of it all kind of comes in.
Somehow.
Is that if Plagueis is there and Chimere's not his apprentice, who is, and who is he trying to, I don't know.
Yeah. Did Chimere come to this unknown planet thinking he was hiding from Plagueis, but Plagueis found him?
Oh, that's interesting too. Yeah. Don't know. These are all these things that could be answered in season 2.
Season 2, #.
Listen, I just to your original question about the like horror elements or these monster movies and it's all these, that circle. we will revisit this question and analysis in a bigger, deeper way once we know more about Plagueis.
Yes.
Because I think there's a lot to be explored here with folklore, with mythology, that I just think we don't have enough from just like the 3 fingers coming out. That is just escaping the crypt. That is Dracula. That is
the man from the bog.
Exactly. And I think that it's just interesting that we're within a cave. It's like a haunted house. It's the Phantom of the Opera. It's a vampire lair. It's all these things. Batcave. And all of these things are coming together on this luscious ocean planet. That's also interesting. So
I wouldn't say it's luscious.
it's pretty luscious.
I don't know. I think of luscious as like tropical.
Oh, that's true.
A lot of greenery.
I guess it's not lifeless though, because we see all those little cuties.
Skura, right?
Skura with the family and the baby.
The family of Skura.
Yeah.
It's very Moorish, I would say.
It is Moorish.
Yeah.
I think of Moors as lush.
I don't.
They are though.
I guess when I think of the connotation of the Moors, it's gloomy, it's Byronic.
Totally. It is, but they are lush.
I guess it's a different type of
grassy
lush.
and wet.
Did we see grass?
No.
There could still be grass.
Yeah,
We just haven't
atop.
explored it yet. Yeah.
Anyway, great question. Thank you so much, Adam.
Hello, Sky Talkers. I'm Harrison, a long-time listener, first-time caller from the Bay Area. I have a half-baked, sort of spooky theory on what might have happened to Mother Coral. We never see her body after she possesses Kelnaka, although Indara breaks the Coven's spell on the Wookiee Jedi and Kelnaka goes into seclusion on Kofar. He is still drawing circular witch symbols in his hut when we meet him in the present. What if the spirit of Coral is still with him all those years later in the back of his mind? And what if Coral learned dark side secrets from Plagueis, and Kelnaka had finally found those secrets in Coral's mind when the stranger arrived to kill him? This assumes Chimera is Plagueis' apprentice. Maybe Kelnaka reverse-engineered Coral's possession through meditation? What do you think? Thanks, and may the Force be with you.
Okay, super interesting theory.
So wild.
Yeah, it's so
I love
wild, but I love
that.
it because I think Leslie has confirmed that Coral is alive, that we never saw her. Are not going to see her in this season.
Well,
but
she said, yeah, no body, no.
Yeah. No, she's alive. I think
she's alive.
She's alive. And I think what you're hitting on with that theory is what's interesting is that we never really understood what was going on with Kelnaka and the possession and the fact that he was writing those stuff, the circles on the circles on the wall, and clearly there's more there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would link everything together.
Be so
for sure.
Literally crazy. Well, you even think back to kind of in Becca's question about what Yord says about Chimera is he gets in your head and he stays there.
Yeah. Same thing with Coral and Kelnaka potentially.
Man, I love that idea.
Yeah, me too.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's very fun.
Yeah, that's super fun. I think that is a very spooky.
Well, I think there's so much more that can be done with the possession of it all.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because I think you and I had thought when we were theorizing the entire time, like there's something weird about Kelnaka, and then that never really came to be.
Yeah,
and I think we all kind of thought he went a little crazy, but they never really were like, oh, that's weird that Kelnaka has been here and he turned off it was really hard to find.
Yeah, when Yord is like, no one's had contact with him for a year.
Yeah, and no one's like questioning why.
I'm sitting there going, did no one do
any due diligence here? Yeah.
Come and find him? Try to FaceTime him?
It's weird.
It's weird.
And I know that Jedi have been known to sort of drop off when they're on these individual planets and individual missions. They're doing their own thing. They're working with the government on these places, but still kind of weird with Kelnaka. And I think maybe there was don't want to touch that because perhaps the people that knew about Kelnaka knew that something like wasn't right. And I think we found out through external sources, which I think could be changed potentially in the future, could something like this happen, but that Kelnaka, he felt such shame from attacking another person with his claws, and I guess that's a big deal that you as a Wookiee you're not supposed to. Yeah, the Mad Claw situation. And I think that was in a Star Wars database, so it is like officially canon.
Yeah.
But I think there could definitely be more there about it. That's not the reason why he went crazy and was drawing those symbols. Like there's definitely something else there. That I like the possession concept. I think that's really fun.
Yeah, that it's still with him.
Yeah.
The idea too would be so dangerous to think about if a Jedi could be possessed and if that possession could continue to be a part of them even long after the possession is technically over.
Yeah.
I mean, Kalnaka, as far as we know, Kalnaka went off the grid a year ago.
Right.
And presumably that's when maybe he started drawing the circles
Yeah.
and the spirals and everything like that. So has Coral just been biding her time
Right.
in his head?
Right.
You know, or has it just been slowly building over the past 16 years? I don't know. There's a lot of spooky stuff that could be done with that. It's cool to think about.
There's no doubt that Mother Coral has like a lot of revenge on her mind.
Oh, she
given
definitely
everything
does.
that happened. And
Yeah.
also the fact that she was the carrier of the twins, I think is another connection. And she probably, when we talk more and we learn more about their origins, the twins' origins and everything, I think we'll think a little bit more about Mother Coral's involvement and her
Actions.
her actions and like her thought process about what happened after Brendock.
Yeah.
Because I think I think the whole situation, I'm like, you have less of a stake in this because it's not really like this is more, you weren't killed. You weren't the one, you know what I mean? Like you fought back. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that this story could do something to bring her back into this interpersonal relationship, this fight, this connection to May and Osha's origins.
Well, she's now another witness to what happened on Brendock that's still out there.
So true.
So to bring her back into the story, she's really the only witness left because Osha didn't see what happened. She knows, but she didn't see it. And May has lost her memories of what happened. So
totally,
she's really kind of the wild card going into season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you so much, Harrison. Here's our last voicemail.
Hi, this is Allison Hutt, and my question, if you're still accepting questions, is whatever happened to the power of 2? I feel like it was talked a lot about in this show, but by the time we got to the last episode, it wasn't even mentioned. So I was just wondering what the deal was with that. Thanks. Bye.
Season 2.
Well, Allison, I think that's a great question. And it was sort of something I like wanted to talk about, but I was saving for this question. Is I feel like the power of 2 is what we're going to be dealing with later. I also think the power of 2 and that whole chant that they do, I don't know where I read this.
Osha?
Yeah, I don't know where I read this and I want to give them credit. But in the last episode, I was like, I think it's really poignant that the fact that they're doing their rhyme together when May loses her memories and then forgets, and they both are like, who taught us that? I thought it was you. They both don't know. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. And I was like, it would be interesting if they did something with that later. And you were like, totally. Yeah, I think this was like an innocent thing, but it would be interesting. So the power of 2, just I want to put a pin in that for a second because I think it would be interesting if that was like coming back to what I said before. I saw something online where people said perhaps that was the chant or the witch spell that created them.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. Okay. Done with that. But the concept of the power of 2, I think I can't get over the fact in The Rise of Skywalker, it's Palpatine who says, now the power of 2 restores the one true emperor.
Yeah.
And it's very specific. It's a dyad unseen for generations. I don't necessarily think May and Osha are a dyad. If they came back in season 2 and were like, you guys are a dyad, I'd be like, interesting. Let's see what we can do with that.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of theorizing and speculation. I don't really think that's what they're telling here, but it is fascinating that the power of 2 is the song that they led with. It is the chant. It's everything. And we didn't really get a full answer on that. However, I do think just going back to how we want the twins to be back together somehow, that they have to be, because they're so powerful together. They need to work together. It's like the Anna and Elsa of it all. Like they're not meant to be.
If they're powerful together.
That's the thing. We need to see that.
Yeah,
we need to see
that. Well,
that.
that's what the last person who mentioned the power of 2 was Chimere.
Yeah,
and him wanting the power of 2. So I think that's still the question that has to be answered. Of is the power of 2 in this world of the Sith, Darksiders, whoever they are, with Chimere and Osha, or is it with Osha and May? Because Leslie has also talked about in interviews about how the reason we're not hearing something like the rule of 2 or dyad or even power of 2 is because the Jedi don't have that vocabulary at this time. And so they're not going to be throwing around the rule of 2 because they don't know what it is yet.
Yeah.
Or, something like that. So for Chimere to say the power of 2, that's the thing. It could mean anything in this time period. It could not even be associated with the dyad. It could be something completely different. So I think it's been left out on purpose. I think right now for me, it's about exploring the power of 2 with Osha and Chimere. And then to find out if they actually could be that, or if the quote unquote plot twist is that Osha and May actually can have this power of 2 together, even though they've been separated for so long and they haven't had to use their powers together since they were children.
The whole blocking and everything that they need to strengthen that for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It is interesting though that it was such a central conceit of the season, and then it kind of didn't have. I swear the show had a lot that they were like, no, this will be very important for season 2, season 3. I think Leslie said that she had planned 4 seasons.
Oh, I don't remember that, but yeah,
it's not that she planned it, because obviously I don't think that's how it works. But it would be interesting to explore in this. Yeah. And I think that was part of the initial pitch.
Yeah.
So
I'm
hope we see it.
I'm so for it. Please.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Well, those were all of our questions. Thank you guys so much for submitting them. And thank you so much for being our guinea pigs with the voicemail box. This was really fun. We definitely will have to do it again.
Totally.
It was really great to hear from you guys.
Yeah, I loved the voicemail aspect. It was so fun.
It was very fun. Very fun. Very fun.
Very fun.
It was very fun.
It was very fun. It was very fun.
And thank you too to everyone who emailed us. I know we can only take calls from within the US. So thank you to international listeners who emailed. We do love receiving emailed questions as well. So thank you guys so much. This was so much fun. I can't wait for that season 2 announcement.
I really thought you were going to say, I can't wait to go and open Pokemon Go.
I mean, yes. But I can't wait for the season 2 announcement, which is hopefully imminent. So check back.
Yeah. I don't want to jinx anything.
I know.
We already jinxed it.
No, don't say that.
Well, what I mean is we're totally past the point of being worried about jinxing it. We just spent this entire hour talking about in season 2.
In season 2, when they do this, I need you guys to know Charlotte has already opened Pokemon Go as I get ready for our sign up.
I'm sorry.
She just caught a spooky looking Pokemon.
Duskull.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. This does conclude our official Acolyte coverage, which is kind of sad. But thank you guys for being on this journey with us and for listening. We can't wait to talk about the next Star Wars thing.
And also the
soon.
Acolyte in the future, incorporated in our other thematic discussions.
Yeah, of course. You guys know us.
You know us. We love a little Star Wars story that we can close and put on the shelf.
This one,
it's season 1. We're closing it and we're putting it on the shelf.
No,
hopefully, we're season 1. We're putting on the shelf, waiting for season 2 to slide right next to it.
No. For me, season 1 is sitting next to the TV.
Okay.
It only gets put on the shelf when it's done. When it's done. Okay. All right. All right. Well, if you want to tell us about your favorite moments of the Acolyte, or if you're still playing Pokemon Go, you can find us on Twitter at SkyTalkersPod or our personal handles. Mine is at Caitlin Fletcher and Charlotte's is at Clarity. We also have our Instagram, TikTok, website. These are all great places to find us. Just search Sky Talkers Podcast and you'll find us. And if you have a couple seconds and would like to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we would really appreciate it as it helps other people find the show. And if you're interested in other ways to support us, you can head on over to our Patreon and check out our reward tiers there.
Yes, I want to say a huge thank you to these patrons: John Debo, Daniel, Kyle, Allie, Travis, Alaya, Kels, Emma, Jennifer, Savannah, Sophie, Neil, Blessed Cheesemaker, The Morning's Hush, Catherine, Lady Valkyrie, Adam, Tom, Sarah, Megan, Courtney, Kimberly, Raphael, Jackson, Lakshana, and Brad. Thank you so much for supporting us.
Yes, thank you guys so much. And until next time, may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.